the shore, and here are big, huge, 16, 17-inch tracks coming out of the water. And so already we're like, what in the, you know what I mean? You're just shocked. And so we followed them. There was a footprint in front of the tree trunk and then one behind the tree trunk. And you could even see evidence of the tree bent, it was bent forward.
You're listening to the Cryptid Creatures podcast with Todd and Brian. If you've had an encounter and want to be on the show, email us at info@cryptidcreatures.co.
This is the Cryptid Creatures podcast. I am Brian, and with me, as always, is my co-host Todd. What's going on, buddy?
Hello, everyone. Thanks for listening. Brian, as you know, we have a great guest on the show tonight.
Huge guest.
Bringing on the famous Doug Hajicek, producer of MonsterQuest.
Creator of one of my favorite shows ever.
Yes.
MonsterQuest.
And many other things, too. He's got his hand in all this stuff.
Oh, yeah. He's a very busy man.
So I'm really excited to bring him on tonight. Don't want to waste any more time. I say we get him on here and we start talking to him.
Yeah, man. Let's get him.
Okay. Hey, Doug.
Hello.
How you doing?
Doing good.
I like your background. It's pretty cool.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
So where are you guys at? What state are you in?
We're in Indiana, northern Indiana.
Northern Indiana, north central Indiana.
Cool. Are there any Bigfoots there?
Supposedly there's some around here.
We've heard there's many.
Yeah. Surprisingly, we're not far from the Michigan line, so there's a lot of activity going on up there, as I'm sure you know. So
I have not spent a whole lot of time in Indiana.
You're not missing much.
You're not missing much.
I've driven through there.
So you're in, are you in Minnesota?
Yeah, we're in here in north of Minneapolis, about 20 miles, I suppose.
Okay. Is that where you're from originally, or?
Yeah, I've been here my whole life. Okay. Yeah, damn Midwest. Long, hard winters and not much to do in the wintertime. Me busy building junk and doing stuff. I've got a great workshop, and that seems to occupy most of my time.
I noticed you were into electric bikes. Is that what you're doing right now?
Yeah, I do a lot of that. I build bikes that have cameras mounted front and rear, so you just turn your e-bike on, and my bikes have a true transmission, so you've actually got 7 speeds that give you more torque or more speed, whatever you want. So if you have to climb a big hill, you've got plenty of power. But what's unique about them is the camera system. So behind you and in front of you, it's recording color during the day in high def or infrared at night.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool. Build one right now for Todd Neese.
Are you really?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he said he wanted the coolest e-bike in the whole world. I said, well, you're getting it.
Yeah, we talked to Todd a couple times actually on our show already. He's a great guy.
Yeah, he's excited to get his bike, but he's like, take your time. Right. I'm going to have it done for him this week.
Well, Doug, we appreciate you coming on and talking to us. Man, it's a privilege to have you on.
Yes, it is.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. So where do we want to go? What do you guys want to talk about? Well, man, I'm game for anything.
I don't want to bore you too much with the same old that you've probably talked about, but we know you're most famous for the producer of MonsterQuest, among many other things. I guess my first question to you is, what kind of got you into that? How'd you get started doing that?
Well, I started out just as a normal, everyday wildlife researcher, wildlife photojournalist. I was filming a lot of animals, which is literally obsessed with it, hanging out with biologists. And then I ended up with an outdoor show that I was producing for Ron Shera, the show is still in the air. That's been 40 years, which is cool. And then I was up on a shoot for Ron. And all of a sudden, we stopped to literally just go to the bathroom, take a pee break. So it was that pee break that changed my life. And not only my life, a lot of people's, because just so happens we pull up on the shore and here are big, huge, 16, 17-inch tracks coming out of the water, which is interesting because if you can imagine like the Caribbean, some of the oceans, how they're shallow and sandy and beautiful, it's just like that up in the Arctic. So we pulled up on the sand escarpment, kind of an island made of basically a sand dune. And so the footprints were crystal clear coming out of the water. And I would imagine it swam or walked from another island that was nearby. And so already we're like, what in the, you know what I mean? You're just shocked at what you're looking at. And so we followed them up to there was pea gravel. It turned into pea gravel. They were just even deeper in the pea gravel, which was weird. And then there was a small stand of stunted black spruce trees. And so what we did is we followed them up there. And where it was my life-changing moment was when there was a footprint in front of the tree trunk and then one behind the tree trunk, meaning it stepped over the tree.
Okay.
So we're talking about a 7 to 8 foot tree. And it clearly stepped over that tree. And you could even see evidence of the tree bent, it was bent forward. And that's when the people I was with, including the one guy, he goes, "We need to leave now."
Yeah.
Once he agreed with me that whatever it was stepped over the trunk. And so I just basically came home and I was obsessed. Something, real made those tracks. It had toes. I already had done a lot of bear research. I knew they weren't polar bear tracks or double step grizzly tracks. And we were really not in a polar bear area. We were too far inland away from, big bodies of water like the Hudson Bay. If you look at a map and find Uranium City is the best place to let you know where I saw those things. You go to Uranium City, then you go north east from Uranium City, and you find a lake called, it's probably one of the bigger lakes, Selwyn with an S. And it was a 6.5 hour float plane ride to go from, I think we based out of, might have been Great Slave Lake or I think it was Great Bear or Great Slave that we flew out of. And it was a 6 hour flight from there. So we're talking in the middle of nowhere, literally up and there's not even any natives. All the natives have even left a long time ago from that area. So it's just nobody up there. And so I came back, got a hold of Matt Moneymaker. He was one of the first people I got a hold of. And Matt was just filling me in on, that these things exist all over, including all over Canada, Northwest Territories, Alaska. And I went, ooh, cool. Okay. So we became friends after that because I had an interest in doing a TV show to tell the world, just basically to share what, any knowledge that Matt had, any knowledge that we could get from scientists. And so we started pitching a show called Legend Meets Science. Right. And as you know, there's a book by the same name that Jeff wrote based on the doc, Dr. Jeff did. And it was a hard sell. It took forever. And finally, Discovery Channel said, we'll do it. And then I set out to shoot that show on 35 millimeter film. If you can imagine how long ago that was. So that was film. Right. Yeah, it's scary. It's just scary. I think about doing that stuff nowadays because, you go to a faraway place to shoot. You don't know whether you actually have anything until you get it in the soup. You get home, you get it in the chemicals in the soup and get it developed. And then you pray and then you look at, we got, what I mean? So, but then I did that. And that was pretty groundbreaking because it was the first science documentary ever done on the topic. I started learning more and realized I wanted to do more. So we started pitching a show called Mysterious Encounters. Have you guys ever heard of that show?
I think so.
I have heard of that one.
It was on the Outdoor Life Network. It was a big hit. But it was the first Bigfoot series on just Bigfoot. It's a regular weekly series. And if you watch it, if you go back and look at Mysterious Encounters, you'll go, holy crap, that's just like some of these other shows. So I patterned it with a lot of science, a lot of tech, a lot of gear. We had drones. We had helium balloons with thermal, on a gimbal with thermal cameras mounted, $100,000 thermal cameras at that time. We had, like I said, early drones, stuff you wouldn't even think of. Most people had never even heard of. We had IR cameras. No one had ever seen IR back then on television. It just really hadn't been on TV yet, with the green, the green IR. And so that aired, broke all records on that network, but then they decided to go into rodeo and just cover live rodeo events. So the show got canceled. And then I started pitching a show on Giganto called the Giganto the Real King Kong. But for 2 years, I just called it Giganto. Couldn't sell it. Nobody wanted it. Then one day I added on the words, the Real King Kong, sold it in one day to a network. Actually to NBC, which was interesting. And then and eventually it got approved by all the divisions, even all the divisions in Europe, to do this big, huge science show on Gigantopithecus and Bigfoot. And then it got vetoed at the last minute by the current president of NBC. I mean, you talk about heartbreaking, thinking you're going to have a great time television special on Bigfoot on broadcast. And so we were really pumped. And then the rug got yanked away. And then they said, we'll take it to History, because apparently they own part of History Channel. And so we brought it to History. And of course, I think they had to take it. And that became, then the Giganto aired. I produced it. It aired, shattered all the records at History Channel. And it shows you that if you produce a non-corny show on a subject that had been kind of corny, they'll watch it. People will watch it. Right. They called me the next morning and said, man, this show just shattered our old records of our highest rated show. Can you do more of these? And of course, what I said instantly was yes. Then we negotiated out right away. I mean, literally, I was in my car running to Kinko's, signing documents and contracts, and it was nuts. And so then MonsterQuest was born.
Cool.
So that's awesome. But I had a number of little things happen when I was young. I was deer hunting one time. I'm trying to think how old I was. I probably was like 19, 20. Deer hunting, get to my deer stand before it's sun had risen. It's dark, and all of a sudden I smell this horrible gag, and I'm covering my face. And I remember thinking, God, that's just like a rotten, dead, a dead person. It was that bad. And then all of a sudden there was chest beating. And I knew it wasn't grouse, because I'd been grouse. I mean, I knew it was not a grouse. I mean, literally I could feel my body shake from the chest beating.
Wow.
And it went away. Suddenly it just went away as quick as it started. I went back to our meeting spot, because I was up there with all my cousins and my uncle. Every single person had the exact same story. And we were a quarter apart on stands. That's kind of an interesting situation. Right. Of course, you didn't see anything, but you just, what do you attribute it to? It was actually one of my cousins said, dude, we all had a run-in with Bigfoot or something, because of the smell. And that was about it. I mean, until, I started really getting into Mysterious Encounters, had a few things happen, never saw anything. And then during MonsterQuest, numerous things happen with the Snellgrove, the Snellgrove incident. Yeah, that was kind of interesting. So,
can you still catch the Mysterious Encounters or the Giganto? Is it on YouTube or anywhere out there to watch?
Yes, somebody posted it on YouTube.
Okay.
So it's just a pirated, and I don't even think they did all 13 of them. But yeah, if you check it out, Mysterious Encounters on YouTube. It had Autumn Williams was the main character in the show. Matt Moneymaker was in it. You won't even recognize him. He's a kid, damn near. In it. Bobo ended up in it.
No kidding.
Yeah, and they're all just, skinny kids. It's interesting.
Awesome.
So there's where they got their start. I remember telling my agent after Mysterious Encounters got canceled, I'm like, why don't you pitch this to Animal Planet? Oh, they would never be interested in that. There'd be no interest. And now they were in there, 14 years?
Yeah.
And so my agent called me one day and he said, yeah, you were probably right. We should have pitched it.
Well, man, before I forget, I want to thank you for all the great content you have put out there for us to see and watch. I really enjoy MonsterQuest. I watch it over and over all the time.
The time.
That's cool.
You did great work on that. So of all the people you have worked with, the Moneymaker and Bobo and probably Cliff and Jeff Meldrum, who's your favorite person to get to work with in the field?
Oh, I don't know. They were all actually fantastic. Everybody was. Everybody has their own unique qualities. I was always really thankful to get Jeff involved in Legend Meets Science. He was also heavily involved in Mysterious Encounters. And it was great that Jeff came out with the book, the companion book. And just so you know, Legend Meets 2 book will be coming out. There will be a Legend Meets Science 2, Doc. I'm taking my sweet old time. COVID obviously delayed everything quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I'm still taking my sweet time because as seems like every month I've waited, more stuff there keeps being more breakthroughs, more science breakthroughs that most of the public is not aware of. We'll have about 24 new categories of evidence.
Wow.
And people are like, well, how is that possible? Oh, it's possible. I've got 24 new categories that people haven't even thought of yet.
New categories. You're not talking hair samples and stuff like that. You're talking something completely different.
Well, new categories, but we all know what's been done with hair, right? DNA, mitochondrial DNA keeps coming back for everybody. Yeah. That's been pretty much it. And then the morphology of the tapered end, the no medulla. But generally, that's been it. But we've got a number of new categories of forensics that have never been done on a Bigfoot hair, as an example. So yeah, no, I can't come up with 25 new body parts. You know what I mean? But there's, like, for instance, there is some brand new categories like the sebum. I don't know if you've seen some of the one sheets I've put out on the sebum, a Bigfoot sebum, skin oil. Okay. Well, this is probably one of the most important topics we could talk about, because I really feel that this is going to solve the whole mystery. And here's why. It's 3D evidence. They seem to have a very thick, almost waxy, stickier. It's a lighter color. Ours is more clear. Theirs got a lot of waxes in it, which would make sense if you're living outside, right?
Yeah.
If you
waterproofing.
Right. If you need protection from the sun, from the weather, you're going to probably more likely going to need extra UV protection, protection from insects, protection from poisonous plants such as poison ivy. I can go on and on. Okay, so when you start thinking about that, you go, oh, ding, ding, ding. For years, I've been looking at these fingerprints that I always thought were just dusty fingerprints on windshields, house windows. I see face prints, and they're always this lighter color. Every time, very consistently. If you go online, just type in Bigfoot fingerprints, you're going to see whiter, a lot of whitish fingerprints. And one day we did a test on some area that I'm working with. And I asked the gentleman, I said, this thing keeps taking the bait or avoiding our camera. Why don't you take the batteries out and just leave the camera on the ground for a few days? So he did. Well, he goes to get it 3 days later, and the whole camera is covered with big white fingerprints. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But then when he told me something, this is when my bells went off. He goes, and they don't even smear. I said, what do you mean? He goes, it's almost like they're permanent. I went, what do you mean? Well, then I looked up what kind of plastic the camera was made out of, and it's styrene. Well, styrene is very reactive with acid, something called volatile organic compounds. We've all heard of turpentine. We've cleaned beaches. Mm-hmm. That's a natural volatile organic compound. It melts styrene. Even turpentine does. Tree sap it's flammable. It's got volatile organic compounds in it, VOCs. So I knew there was some VOCs in those dermals because it had etched right into the plastic. Interesting, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so now I can see your guys' brains are going off.
Oh, yeah.
So what if you were to put sheets of styrene out in the forest, black styrene or whatever, you can buy it cheap at Menards or, whatever your big box store is, even a hobby store. But you can put styrene out. You can maybe put some apples around it. The one thing that will happen is that styrene will get touched. The reason it gets touched is just a theory. But think about it. Did they ever get a chance to touch smooth things in the forest? Probably pretty rare. And I would imagine they're very tactile. They like to touch. I've got a little nephew that loves to touch. He'll touch the carpet. He'll touch the couch. He wants to feel everything. Mm-hmm. Well, that's just a human nature. It's something we all like to do if you're a primate. And I would imagine they just like the smoothness. They like to touch. Why are they touching everybody's windshields? Car windows. It's the smoothest thing on a car. Even car doors and nice clean paint. They cannot resist touching, which means now you can repeat this experiment over and over and over. But here's where it gets good. This is when it gets really good. So not only can you get the latent details, which are, the fingerprints, the whoops, the whirls, the scars, the size, you get all this amazing detail, sweat pores. Their sebum is so conductive for getting every sweat pore even, and that kind of down to that kind of detail. Wow. So you've got that evidence, which you can photograph it up close, get really good photographs, blah, blah, blah. Don't ignore it anymore. Photograph. Cannot take enough photographs. Take video. Then get yourself some Q-tips, clean Q-tips. New pack, preferably brand new pack, so it hasn't been contaminated. Put a mask on so you don't breathe all over this thing and get your own germs all over it. Take a Q-tip and start swabbing it. Get a good swab of it. Put it in a paper envelope. Then take another Q-tip and get a good bunch of the sticky crap, because there's two more kinds of evidence in the sebum. One's a full chemical analysis. Every primate has an exact type of sebum. Your sebum is different than a chimp or an orangutan. Orangutans and chimps are different. Gorillas are different than chimps or orangutans. There's already been all the scientific studies already done. They're already charted out exactly. Like, for instance, we'll have triglycerides in our sebum. A gorilla has none. We'll have cholesterol in our sebum, our skin oil. They don't have any. But chimps do. So everybody's got their own unique chemical signature. So all we have to do now is get the chemical signature of a Bigfoot, be able to repeat this over and over. And I'm telling you, we're having luck every week repeating this. We are. But people all over the country can do this. Scientists can do this. It's so much easier than getting a sighting or trying to get film, right? That's been proven to be really tough. But to get them to touch something it's like the easiest thing ever. So easy. It's freaky. If you're actually in the area where there's activity, they will touch that material, and they will leave you some of the most beautiful prints you've ever seen. Then, to top it all off, the cherry on the sundae, there's sloughed off skin cells. Tons of them in the sebum. So now you can get full nuclear DNA, not mitochondrial, which keeps coming back, based on the female, which always comes out human. But a full nuclear genome can be taken. So you've got now 3D evidence. Nowhere has there ever been 3D. It's been 2D evidence, like Patterson and Bob Gimlin ended up getting 2D evidence. They filmed Patty, and then they got the footprints cast. That's 2D. Well, this is 3D. And I think it'll push science over the edge.
Have you guys taken samples of these handprints, fingerprints, whatever, the sebum, you call it, from different locations and compared those things?
Well, we haven't done the scientific analysis yet, but I've got the labs lined up ready to do it. So I'm just kind of like, I'm so excited about it. I don't want to mess it up.
Yeah.
I'm that excited about it. I'm that optimistic about that. What we've got here is maybe something that can tip the scales, that at least enough for the other scientists to go, oh, maybe there is something here. I can go now repeat this test on my own for $5. And I can repeat it every week. I can collect DNA, I can collect chemical analysis, and I can collect latent details. And none of them can be faked. Absolutely none of those. So there you go. And really cool if you could have a camera trap there and film, the whole thing. If you could come up with a clever enough camera trap, which I'm working on that. I mean, we're dealing with little 3.6 millimeter cameras now. And at some point, the perfect storm is going to happen again.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
you're the man to do it.
Well, I don't need, it isn't really me. All these samples come from people I'm dealing with. People just like yourself that go, oh, I'm working an area. And I think, and they'll follow my instructions to put out the traps or to do whatever. And the other thing we're doing is you can actually attach even some Velcro, the barbed side up, little Velcro pieces on the plexiglass. And guess what that does? It snags their hair. So they're touching it. Meanwhile, their arm hair is getting snagged in that Velcro. And so you're getting the sebum and you're getting the hair.
That's awesome.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's their curiosity. Their curiosity is going to make them come up and check stuff out. You set something out in the middle of nowhere where maybe they're at. Maybe they'll.
That's their weak spot. They're obviously, these things operate on fear. There's no doubt. They're like black bears. Black bears also operate. It's how they survived all these. The short-faced bear is gone. They went extinct because they didn't operate on fear. The black bear is afraid of its own shadow, and so they do what they can to avoid people, to avoid confrontation, and they for the most part, as we all know, they run. They see it, they bolt the other direction. They'll climb a tree, whatever. I think Bigfoots are very similar that way. They're very skittish. I think they get busted. And I think in most of the times when they get busted and they're seen, I think there's a juvenile involved that's just out of sight. And I think you're being led away like a killed deer, killed deer to do with its nest. That's
makes sense.
Kind of my feelings. It's just that, the more I'm doing this for more and more years, I'm seeing this pattern over and over again. Even if you look at the Freeman footage, you see that big distended stomach. And a lot of people will say, well, that Freeman footage is hoax. No, I can tell you it's not. You'll notice it's got a big stomach. Well, there's another section of the tape. Most people haven't seen it, but I've got that same creature lifting a baby up, and that the baby's wrapping its legs around the waist. Paul didn't even know about that. So when you couple the footage of the thing with the big pot belly, which is probably postpartum or it's pregnant again, showing itself just to lead Paul once again away from its young.
I never thought about that. Maybe that's what they're doing when you have encounters. Maybe when they say they parallel you away from somewhere. Maybe they're getting
trying to get
you
you
away
away
from environment.
Their family or their young ones, which would make sense. I mean, you do the same thing.
What do you think about the Independence Day footage or the July 4th footage? It's what I'm talking about.
I know about the Memorial Day. The Independence Day is, okay, explain that one.
It's the one where the female supposedly stands up. This guy's looking kind of like at rock formations, and she stands up behind a rock, and she's carrying a baby in her front.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. Sure.
What do you think about that? Legit or no?
CGI. It's animation.
Uh-huh.
I hate to say it, but that's what it is.
I truly thought could be real. I don't think it was someone in a costume, but you say that makes sense too.
No, it's not a costume. If you look, you'll see the telltale jitter, the CGI jitter. Plus, anytime you have no context in the beginning, hardly, and there's certainly no context at the end, there's no audio. There's a lot of red flags, and I have a three flag rule. So if a footage pops up 3 red flags, I'm done. I'm done looking at it. I'm not going to waste any more time because there's no scientific value there. If I give it to a scientist, he's going to find the same 3 red flags, and then usually I'll find a 4th and a 5th. That one's got 4, 5, 6 red flags. Okay. Well,
wow.
I literally, when you have 6 red flags, I always put it in the category of no chance of being real. No chance. So,
yeah.
Hey, I'm sure you've seen the Russian footage. Is it the Russian footage where it shows the Bigfoot running along the forest line, and the guy says, "Oh, we're going to put this on YouTube" during the video? You know what I'm talking about there?
Is it the one where it runs from screen right to screen left, and there's a couple of children there and a dog in the?
Yep, that's the one.
I believe.
Or are you talking about the one where it's in the snow? There's a number of Russian, and then there's another one.
It's the one where at the end he kind of like jumps and you can see his arm span kind of come out like he's leaping down onto a.
Yep, I've got a lot of opinions on that one.
Okay.
It's not a costume. I see no evidence of CGI. None. And that's all I can say about it until I get a hold of the original.
So,
I have reached out to them to try to get that original. They haven't had any luck.
Wow, that'd be cool.
So it does have some red flags, and that is, who's the owner? Yeah. But I can only give it 2 red flags. But I don't see any evidence of CGI, which is really interesting. None. Like there's no evidence. And the fact that the musculature and the arm, the wingspan, as it does that big leap, is so natural too. And the thing is so hobbled over when it goes from right to left is really interesting to me.
Yeah, I thought that.
So that's all I can tell you. 2 red flags. That's it.
Okay.
Well, that's good.
Interesting.
2 red flags, but not 3.
I got to ask, what was your favorite MonsterQuest episode? If you had one.
The one that was done, edited. I don't know. I don't think I really had any favorites. I obviously liked the Snow Grove one because I was involved in that one so heavily. I was one of the victims. In fact, I was the first victim of it when we weren't doing a show. But I think the giant squid one, I'm certainly very proud of that because that has now, there's a 2-hour special in the History Vault that they did air in prime time here, I think it was last year, where they have confirmed that was the first Architeuthis ducks ever filmed in the world.
That's what I read, that you're responsible for filming that.
Yeah.
And also you're responsible for filming the first birth of a wild black bear in the wild.
Yep.
So that's awesome.
Wow,
Yeah,
great accomplishments. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Plus we documented, which was probably blind luck, but we spent 2 years trying to get a camera in a wild beaver lodge right on the Canadian border. 2 years. In fact, it was funny because I had Matt with me one year, and I made him dig 2 into that beaver lodge till his feet were frozen. Because we would take turns trying to chisel into this beaver lodge. So I'd go up every other weekend and just chisel away at this thing. Because you couldn't do it in the summer. But beaver lodges are full of mud and, sticks. And then, of course, you had the 20 below zero. And it had to be done in the wintertime. So I would just go up every other weekend. We'd chisel away. Finally, we broke through, and I had a cool camera system rigged so the beavers wouldn't dam it off. Because if they sense any air leak, they just cover your camera up like right away. It just gets covered. But I wanted to document the whole winter of these beavers. Well, the first thing we saw was a muskrat come in. And we're like, oh, damn it, there's no beavers in here. It's just muskrats. And then all of a sudden a beaver came in. And then all of a sudden we saw the muskrats grooming the beavers.
What?
In all their fur, and we're like, whoa, okay, that's a scientific discovery. The natives always talked about the muskrats and the beavers, the relationships. They had legends and lore about it. But no one had ever looked inside a wild beaver lodge ever. It's the first had ever been seen. And here were the muskrats. So we're watching this behavior every day. We're watching the muskrats do all the bedding. They did all the bedding, never touched any of the walls of the side as water levels rise and fall, which they do even in the wintertime, in ponds and whatnot. But the muskrats would even find bugs and parasites in their fur and eat them and feed on them. And it was so amazing to watch. Sometimes for an hour, they would groom these beavers, every inch of them, like little slaves. Huh. I thought, God, this is so cool. Anyhow, there's a scientific paper being written on that too now. It's the first
awesome
ever documented cohabitating.
See, we don't even know what's going on with our own wildlife that we're aware of, let alone Bigfoot. So,
yeah, no kidding.
I mean, that's crazy.
That's what's shocking to me more than anything is that people like us researchers really feel like, well, there's nothing else to discover in the world because scientists have done everything. That is such BS. There is so much stuff to discover out there and so much to learn. I always think of Bigfoot researchers as the smartest people on this planet because, one, they're willing to take their own money, their own time, their own resources, and do basically the best science they know how to do. And I'm like, they need a whole lot more credit than they've been given.
Oh, yeah.
The other people go, oh, they're a bunch of amateurs. They don't know what they're doing. It doesn't matter. These people are freaking working with their own money, their own time. I mean, thousands of hours in many cases, trying to get answers on a mystery. That is what I call true science. That is the true scientist.
Yeah, and they're passionate about it.
They're not people that are bought off by a pharmaceutical company.
No.
It's going to, give them the results they want. They're just doing it out of pure love and passion. For anybody listening that's a Bigfoot researcher, consider yourself a 1%er. That's the way I feel. And I think at some point that credit's going to come to them. Yeah,
we hope so. We're waiting.
Yeah, I hope it does. Yeah.
And trying ourselves. So
it'll happen for you guys. You're young. It'll definitely happen to you guys. Yeah, you'll see it. I'm going to do whatever I can.
I hope so, Doug.
At least springboard it to the next level. And you do realize right now, every other Thursday, tons of scientists meet about this subject. Are you aware of that?
No.
You're not?
No.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate to be in those meetings.
Man, I'd love to be a fly on the wall there.
That is happening right now.
Wow.
I'm talking, I think it could be as high as almost 60 now.
So you guys are working on getting it done then?
Well, collectively, one, it proves that they're interested. They know it's worthy of study. But the problem is they have jobs.
Reputation.
They have to meet with us secretly.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason they're meeting with us because they know there's merit to all this. They know some of them even had sightings. And they want answers. But they still can't give up their day job. So they still have to remain anonymous. But the fact that all this knowledge is at least being kicked around and pulled together, and it's quite interesting. Oh, I was going to mention one thing, one of them here. Yeah, I think everybody will find this interesting because it was new to me and it was new information I'd never heard. It came out of one of these meetings, and I was doing a presentation of the sebum. And by the way, Shelley Covington, Montana, we were talking one day, and I say, hey, why don't you name this stuff? So she came up with Sasquatch alba vernix. And alba just means white. Vernix is that waxy coating that we're all born with. When we're born, we're covered with thick, waxy stuff. It's very much like that.
Okay.
It's very protective. So anyhow, so we were in this meeting. I was doing a presentation on this alba vernix, which is scientifically called surface skin lipid. So that's the scientific name, or SSLs, if you want to get real fancy. And, I just call it sebum or the alba vernix. But one of the people, that scientist, happened to be also a zookeeper. He's a biologist, he's a zookeeper. And all of a sudden his lights went off because he deals with gorillas. And it was like every light bulb went off in his head. He goes, oh, I've got something interesting to share. And he tells us about this sticky white coating that happens on occasion on the gorilla windows, and they can't get it off. And I went, oh, ding, 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 ding. And he said something else. One day, I was with all these male gorillas. There were like 3 or 4 male gorillas, and they were all agitated. And he said there was this white, thick stuff bubbling out from under their armpits. I mean, this is unknown stuff to science at this point, right? And the only reason this is coming out is because we're communicating Bigfoot to gorillas with a biologist. And he had seen this, and he just kind of blew it off. He had no idea. He said it was actually bubbling out of their armpits. Wow. So that means, is that the source of the Bigfoot stuff too? That it originates at their armpits, so it is skin sebum, but maybe it's also a body excretion that comes and they're rubbing it on themselves. They're rubbing it on their hands. God, we don't know.
Yeah.
But it's that type of communication that happens every other Thursday that causes these little breakthroughs. And it's really
wow.
So
sometimes people wouldn't think talking about something like that would help prove the existence, but you never know what could spring up from doing this thing and being more detailed in that.
And if Bigfoot researchers can just spend more time on Zoom, we have Zoom now. You can get 20 people, 30 people on a Zoom call. You guys all need to just start networking and set up a meeting. Even if researchers you don't agree with, set up meetings and just do presentations, exchange notes, because there's going to be these light bulb moments that are going to happen. It's just going to happen. So when you communicate, sometimes you might have to talk for an hour and a half, and all of a sudden there's this amazing light bulb moment that happens. And so that's what I really encourage people to start, organizing Zoom with even strangers that you don't even know. Say, hey, we really wanted to, start organizing discussions about Bigfoot. Even if we don't agree, it's better, because we're just going to all respect it. We're just going to talk about what we know or what we've seen and what we've witnessed, and share this information for the fact that we may end up putting 2 pieces of unknown knowledge together, like the example I just gave you. It's 2 pieces of unknown knowledge. Nobody in the world knew about this white bubbly stuff coming out of gorillas' armpits.
First I heard about it.
Exactly. You're not going to read it anywhere. You're going to hear it here, and that's it. And the dots that I had connected, and we're connecting all those dots together. So now it becomes even more interesting because it makes sense. White, can't get it off. Oh, now we have another cool connection. So.
Yeah, I've heard or seen encounters or whatnot, probably something that you produced on TV, where people have had handprints on their windshields or on their vehicles, and no matter how hard they try, we've talked and interviewed people, same thing, they've had prints on their vehicles.
Well, that's because
they can't get it off.
I brought this up 2 years ago, yeah.
And they can't get it off, so...
there could be. There were 2 ladies that I've recently met that actually noticed this a long time ago before I ever brought it up. And they were talking to some people. They just didn't put all the dots together. So when they read my one sheet here, literally just a week ago, they got a hold of me, and we've had, telephone conversations. So it's been really interesting. Yeah. So I've met a number of cases. We also have full face prints, white, same kind of stuff, except full face prints. And we've not only photographed and did all that and collected everything scientifically, but we've also lifted the print. So we've preserved it.
Cool.
So that can be forensically put back together again.
Man.
What are your thoughts about the paranormal side of things with Bigfoot? Do you believe in any of that? You think?
Open-minded. I'm open-minded. Who am I to, I'm humble about it. Who am I to say? I've had a few weird things happen, but I'm not going to jump to a conclusion and go, well, that weird thing for sure was because of this. I've seen, I've been up in the Arctic. up by Snell, the subarctic, and seen orbs up there, really low orbs that are just over the treetops. And then we've had Bigfoot experiences up there. Well, are they connected? Well, who the hell am I to say they're connected?
Right.
One could just be earth lights that are just generated by forests. And it could be just because earth lights are formed in the same area as Bigfoot lights. So you can't really make the jump, but I'm open-minded. There was a time we felt like we were all by a campfire, but bum rushed. We could feel the ground shaking. It sounded like an elephant was charging us. Literally the ground was just, and we all bolted because we all thought we were going to get plowed over by an elephant. And we bolted, all of us. We never even communicated. We just bolted out of survival. And then all of a sudden we recovered from the bolting, and we didn't see anything. And we're all talking, and it's like, well, why did you bolt? Well, because the ground was shaking. I could hear the weeds, parting and the bushes parting, and it sounded like something was going to be on us in about 2 seconds. We all had the same thing, but none of us saw anything. So it was kind of weird. It was like it was invisible.
Was that the Snell Grove incident?
No. No, that happened down here.
Okay.
Down here in my neck of the woods. And I have areas within 4 miles, there's tons of Bigfoot sightings.
I was going to say, where you're at.
I believe it up there, yeah.
You probably got some Dogman action going on, too. What's your thoughts on Dogman?
The nearest Dogman sighting is about 40 miles away, and there's been a number of them over in the St. Croix Valley area around Afton. And don't know. I haven't seen one. I don't know, but I tell you, there's a lot of compelling anecdotal witnesses, anecdotal stories. There was one where there was a biologist recounting a story, a trained biologist who had an encounter, claimed he even shot it, put a bullet in it. And definitely not lying. He believes everything he's telling. Mm-hmm. So I don't really know. Is it misidentification of a Bigfoot? Is it a different Bigfoot species? Is it some paranormal creature from another dimension? Who the heck knows? Are people lying? I doubt it. What in the world do you have to gain?
That's what we've always said too.
Yeah, 99% of the people have nothing to gain by telling any stories. That's why only 1% of the stories are even told.
Yeah.
Because you have everything to lose, nothing to gain. Nothing.
Yeah, a lot of people are embarrassed. Even we just talked to a lady a couple of nights ago, a great Dogman encounter, actually. We'll put it out on our show here eventually. Yeah. But, we knew she was telling the truth. She was so nervous, just by listening to her.
She had to stop and collect herself a couple times.
So terrifying. Why would she have to make it up? She's not gaining anything by coming on our show. She didn't really want people to know who she was.
No. Mm-hmm. No. And, if you think about all of I always tell people there's 8,500 documented written sightings. There's at least another 2,000 by podcast. Cool. In many ways, the podcasters are documenting these sightings better than a written, because you get to meet the witness, you get to hear their inflection, you get to hear all the details. What I think podcasters should do is I think we should all be writing these down and at least having our own file of every sighting written down with a reference and a brief description, because at some point the podcast sightings need to be added to the database, into the database map. I agree.
Okay.
And there's people
we can do that.
Yeah, like Scott Tompkins for the Bigfoot Mapping Project. There's a guy in England that's doing an incredible job with doing GIS information. These guys are running out of data to enter. They would love it if they could say, "Oh, Brian, can you turn over all of your sightings that you've, and you should always ask people, did you make a written report? If they say no, then it's really valuable because you can add another dot to the map.
Yeah.
To study corridor travel, to study, where the waterways, where these things, seasonal information. It's just fascinating. It's really fascinating. So we need to start documenting as podcasters all these sightings.
Well, we've got all the episodes
can do that.
backed up and recorded, so we're good to go with that stuff.
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
we'd be
great.
happy to join that effort for sure.
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
It's important. The reason it's important because now there's people with there's technology enough to do stuff with this data. And yeah, 2,000 sightings, that's still a lot of sightings. There could be more. Actually, I'm just guessing. When I say podcasters have documented 2,000 sightings, maybe it's 5,000, maybe it's 10. I don't really know. I'm kind of guessing.
When Brian and I first started the podcast, one of our concerns was, getting enough people to come on the show and talk to us.
Right.
And now we realize that it's not a problem finding people. And on top of that, the people we're finding, I've never heard another podcast before. I've never heard their stories before. These are new stories coming to us. And we're just one podcast out there doing this. So it's amazing how many people, and a lot of these are recent sightings and encounters that are just happening that we're hearing too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's a huge service being done when you bring these people on. But just remember what you're doing is important. It's more important than just the entertainment value. It's actually you're collecting data. So definitely you want to make sure you somehow, even if it's off the record and you have to write it because I don't want to go public with the exact location, you should try to get the exact location.
Okay.
Yeah,
we can do that.
Yeah, we actually were doing that a little bit, or we've been asking people, trying to figure out where it's at. We always like to try to identify where they're at on the map and look for the closest set of woods, or is there a big patch of woods there? Is there a refuge there? What's going on? Always some commonalities, that kind of thing too.
Yep.
Have you guys noticed that there's? I don't know what your answer is going to be, but have you noticed there's more and more sightings near a gas station down the road or suburbia, a mile or two?
Yes.
Because the amount of game animals that are living in amongst the suburbs or suburban areas are incredible. I'm an old bastard, and I can tell you, I remember when I was young, we never saw anything. We never saw wild turkey, never saw a fox. I lived in the woods. Never saw a bear, never saw a crane, never saw an eagle, never saw a hawk, never saw a duck, never saw a goose. There was nothing.
In Minnesota?
No, it's all over the whole country. You guys aren't old enough to even remember. At one point, there was no game management. Everything could be shot. And everything was just wiped out. Literally. No game. Bears didn't have a big game status. So bears were decimated in Minnesota. Yeah, maybe there were 300 animals. Now we have 40,000 black bears. Big difference between a few hundred and 40,000.
Oh, yeah.
There were no Canadian geese even. They were gone. They were decimated. And now they're like rats with wings, right?
They can stay gone.
But I actually know the guy that rediscovered them up in Canada again.
Tell him thanks.
Exactly. Pardon my French. Pooping all over my yard.
All over the golf courses everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah, the rats with wings. No.
Yep.
But that gives you an idea of what we're dealing with now compared to the old days. Right. I can't go on a bike ride without running into a herd of deer, seeing a fox, 30 rabbits, coyotes, wild turkeys, sandhill cranes, hawks, eagles, pheasants, grouse. And that's just on a little 30-minute bike ride. And you can only imagine why there would be Bigfoots punching into our not our neighborhoods, but in these corridors, these wildlife corridors that exist. But you'll find where you have activities where there's a power line cut that cuts into that wildlife corridor, or a stream or a creek. There's always some reason they're there. And so that's what I love studying these corridors and searching out witnesses. Sometimes I have to go knock on doors, and oh my God, you'd be surprised. You just like literally wait. We'll just go up and just start knocking on doors and say, yeah, this might sound weird, and you start asking these homeowners, and they're like, yeah, our house gets beat on about every May. Terrifying. And yeah, we've had sightings, and They don't tell anybody. They just think that people will think they're nuts.
Right.
Because there's a gas station down the road. Yeah. Bigfoot only has to occur in the wilderness.
Not anymore.
No, and it's I find stick structures, 2-3 miles from my house, and they'll be like gone the next day, rebuilt the next day, moved. Some of them are 80 foot tall. These are not being built by kids. These are 1-ton logs. I've actually found some. The next day they're gone, and then they'll be back again a week later. Totally amazing. Something with great strength is doing those, and I don't even know why. I don't even have any theories. But those are not children. Those are not Cub Scouts hauling in 1,000-pound logs and putting them up, or leaning on, doing whatever they're doing with them. And we find complex teepees that are made of thousands of sticks, peeled bark, interwoven fulcrum design, which is really complex. Frank Lloyd Wright all the way in the way they're being designed. Super interesting.
And hunters aren't doing that stuff either.
No.
No.
There's no hunting allowed in the area.
I don't have the time.
Yeah, there's no hunting allowed where I do stuff. If you go to areas where there's no hunting, no dogs got to be on leashes, and no access at night, I love those areas because they'll almost always produce activity in the evening, at 2-3 in the morning, because they know there's no people allowed in there. They never see a person at night. And so it's, 500,000 acre wildlife preserve where there's no hunting, no dogs allowed, and no camping. And at night, you go in there and you have immediate activity because they're like, what in the hell are you doing in here?
Mm-hmm.
It's funny too, because I get booted out all the time by like game wardens and sheriffs, and I usually then strike up a conversation with them. Like, tell me about your encounters. Well, they'll be quiet for a little while and they'll think. It's like, dude, I'm not going to tell anybody. Okay, well, I was here last week. I was checking on a stolen car that somebody had stashed in here, and I had a log thrown at me at 2 a.m. Okay. And they're like, I don't know what it was, but it sure made me think.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of stories you'll get.
Right. Yeah. Tell us about your Untold Radio.
Oh, geez. I don't know. Just another wannabe podcast. And I'm not used to whistling in the dark, as they say. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. We're pretty new. Our podcast is actually getting fairly popular, but we just started YouTube channel, and we just kind of have a variety of guests. I don't really want to specialize in any one thing. I kind of like the variety. Mm-hmm. We cover, like us. I think yesterday we had a UFO guy, Rich Hoffman, amazing guy, amazing scientist, still works for the Department of Defense. Shows like that, but we're about to launch the Untold Radio Network.
Cool.
Wow.
Hoping to bring in a number of shows like yours to
we happen to be available.
Well, to do them, to bring up the level of quality a bit, but to bring up the level of marketing and to be able to drop more programming, to get more people to subscribe to the channel, to hopefully get a greater monetization. So we're basically a cooperative, a coalition of podcasts. So then we can all meet once a month and trade guests and share ideas and,
cool.
criticism and, what can we do to just kind of all rise to get the cream rise? Because
that sounds great.
As you guys know, you guys look pretty damn good.
Thank you.
But there are some pretty bad looking and podcasts I don't think that represent properly.
Yeah,
I understand what you're saying.
And here I was being potty mouth, which I'm normally never too potty mouth, but I was tonight.
You say whatever you want.
Hey, you say what you want on our show. That's fine.
I didn't get too bad, but anyhow. I think I said frickin' once. So
I don't think you did.
Now twice. Anyhow.
Brian, what you got for Doug? You got anything for Doug?
Yeah, all good.
Actually, I was going to ask you about the alien thing. You just brought up the guy you just talked to. Do you believe in the
Oh God, yes. Oh God, yeah. That for sure. I mean, it's a lot of anecdotal evidence, but we've had numerous. We happen to be in a real active area for UFOs, to the point where I've had like researchers come here that have never seen a UFO, and they'll be here 10 minutes and they have their first sighting.
Wow.
It's that bad here. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. And of course, we have all the elements. We have the big, huge power lines. We've got the lakes. We've got, I don't know what it is about this area, but it's like the triangle here. There's so much activity that you can hardly go a night without a really decent UFO.
God, we got to get up there.
Decent UFO sighting where you can do all you want on your satellite maps and your aircraft maps, and you can do everything you want, and you'll come up with zero, and then the UFO or whatever will usually come right over us, usually. And we've seen pink ones, blue ones, sparking ones, and the last ones we saw were Pepto-Bismol pink. It's just beautiful. I mean, they were just like the most gorgeous things I've ever, just bizarre looking.
Yeah.
Because it's one light color it was almost a color you can't even, I don't even know how to describe it. I guess it was pinkish, but it was like a color I've never seen. And there were two of them, which was really cool.
Wow.
And of course, we were just a block away from my house, and they came right to the car, came right to the windshield, and then one zipped off and one blinked off.
Wow.
So, I mean, those are the kinds of sightings.
Awesome.
We've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sightings like that. So it's.
Did you watch any of the NASA congressional hearings? What did you think about those?
Not really, only because I knew nothing would come out of them. And this fake bull crap. It's all fake bull crap, in my book. If anybody knows about UFOs, it's NASA. I remember having dinner with the head of Space Command once, because a friend of mine was putting a museum on with a retired guy. And I did ask him at dinner, and I went, are UFOs real? And he goes, there are no UFOs.
So they are identified.
IFOs, huh?
Then he went on to explain how accurate their space radar is. And he went on to tell me about, you could take a quarter 20 bolt, and we can count the threads on it. And I'm like,
wow.
Okay, so he didn't break any protocol. He said there are no UFOs. But he emphasized U, which I thought was brilliant of him.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And then I dropped it. That's enough. That was great. That was the greatest answer I could have ever gotten.
Yeah.
I mean, I just couldn't imagine that we're not being visited or studied, at least.
Yeah.
I've seen so much craft, it isn't even funny. We've seen big ones, little ones. We've seen ones with, 8 lights. Seen ones that are classic saucer shaped that have like plasma going all around them. I mean, at 200 feet away, we've had sightings like that right here.
Man.
The last one I saw that was amazing was literally I was taking the garbage out. And I was like, Yvette, get out here now. And she saw it. But she saw it right when it was doing it stayed there for just another 2 seconds and then blasted away.
I need to start watching skies more at night. I don't pay attention.
I'm out my backyard every night.
A lot of people don't. They don't go out at the right time. You got to kind of commit. If you're going to go out, you can't go out at 10 and stay to 10:30. You got to need to kind of commit from 10 to 1 or 10 to midnight. I think they do come around more when there's less people up.
That would make sense, yeah.
I think you have like 100-fold more chance of seeing one.
Okay.
I think in the winter they tend to come out earlier in the day, which is weird. We've noted that, they'll be out at 6 o'clock in the wintertime, but not till 1 or 2 o'clock in the summer. The other thing to look for is the great nights are just nice evenings. For some reason, there seems to be more activity when it's pleasant out. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it just makes sense if you're out doing whatever you're studying or whatever they're doing.
Traveling around.
Yeah, it's nicer to be outside when it's nice out.
They have to be here to learn. Okay.
Yeah.
So the most weird thing, we were on the deck sunny day. We're just going to, I mean, there was a few, nice little clouds up, friendly clouds. So we go on the deck, meet Yvette, we lay down, and we're in our swimsuits, we'll oil up or put our lotion on. And she's looking at her phone or whatever, and I'm like almost out like a light. And all of a sudden she starts screaming. This is broad daylight. And I'm like, I look at her and she's like, and I turn my head slow because she's really, you can tell she's freaked. There's a UFO right by the deck rail. Sitting there, just broad daylight. It's blacker than black and it's changing shape. It's going from triangle to oval, round. It's just it's like breathing. And it's like a texture on the skin. And I grabbed my phone. I said, don't do anything sudden. I'm treating it like a living animal because I could see this like respirating. So I grabbed my phone really careful and I put my phone on and then scroll to the, you get the settings. I put my video camera and it's rolling and I go like this and then they go. I did get footage of it. I got quite a bit of footage of it. Great fun. I've actually showed it on my podcast last night if you want to see it.
Okay, we'll check it out.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
And then we went in the garage to see if I'd gotten anything, and I did. It was small because the footage you're going to see is blown up. Plus, I had to low res it because I had to email it to my son so we could put it up on the podcast. But another one comes shooting out of the water. So we went back out on the deck to see if we could see it again. And it came, another one, or it could have been the same one, came shooting out of the water and just headed straight to the clouds this time.
How big was it?
I would say about 4 foot. It's not, I don't think it was manned, but it was like a pill shape. It was very much a tic tac or a pill shaped.
Wow.
Shaped like a contact pill. And the other one was shaped like a contact pill too. And then a diamond, and then a circle, then a diamond, then a contact pill.
So you think most of these are like just like spy drones, just like
they've got to be
surveillance?
But here was Yvette's story. Here's what was most interesting. She said that she didn't think much of it. She watched it go around our pine tree by our shore twice, circle this pine tree. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So I thought, well, I'm going to go look at the pine tree. It's just a pine tree, but I'm going to look at it. Why would it go around a pine tree twice? There's millions of pine trees everywhere. So I go up to the pine tree. What do you think? There was something very different about that pine tree. It was almost something I've never even seen before. There was a parasitic tree that had grown around the trunk and was strangling that pine tree. I've never seen that with a pine.
Huh.
And it was like a maple that had gotten in there. In fact, it took me like 2 hours to get that parasitic tree out of there. And I said, Yvette, come look at this. I said, maybe this is why it was confused.
Probably. They're like, what is going on here?
As good a guess as anybody's, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It was interesting.
Awesome.
It might have been confused, and that's why it was circling. Then saw us on the deck and said, I'll go check those naked people out. We weren't naked, but we had our swim trunks, and we're covered with some kind of slimy, shiny oil.
Like, what are those?
Which may have looked real interesting. I don't know. Who knows?
That's crazy and kind of scary to think about.
Like, man, what
there's little spy drones out there for these
well,
supposed aliens,
So if I go on the deck now at night, I have to go alone because she will not go. She said, if that thing is that black and it came that close to us during the day, what's it going to be like at night?
Yeah, you'd never see it.
I said, do you have a point? Do you have a point? But didn't do anything to us. Didn't. I could see if it did something to us, but she's still actually, that affected her. And then there were other things that's happened. She's been in, up to Snell Grove where the cabin got attacked once. And then, of course, that same trip, and I was like, damn it, we had an emergency landing. And then the guy got injured really bad, and we barely made it out of there. She's like, so she's not going to take any more trips with me after that. Not on a full plane. And then we were driving home on 35W one night, and we had some big wing thing swoop at us. And we both got a good look. She ducked, I ducked in the car. It just dropped out of the sky. You guys are into cryptids, right?
Oh, yeah.
So this thing drops out of the sky. It was a beautiful moonlit night. I even remember the song on the radio was Vincent by Don McLean was playing on the radio.
Okay.
It's a beautiful night. We're just relaxing, enjoying the ride. Beautiful weather, full moon. And we see this thing just drop like a spider with wings outstretched. We didn't know there were wings at that time, but we just saw this wide thing drop straight down and then immediately head for the car. So it drops down and goes like that, right at my windshield.
Wow.
And it came, within inches of the windshield.
How big?
It's wider than the freeway.
Ooh.
That's where the problem is. Yeah. So it defied physics, which opened my mind up a little bit more. It opened my mind, completely defied physics, and then swooped at the windshield for what reason? To scare us? What was the purpose? To see it?
Good look at you?
I got a good look at it. And
So,
locked eyes.
Was it dark when this happened?
Yeah, it was dark, but it was in the headlights of my car.
Mothman, maybe?
Didn't have feathers. It had shiny skin, like bat skin.
Jersey Devil.
The hiccups. Very gargoyle-like, but huge wings. You could see like the bones in the wings, just like you would in a bat, only giant. But it had a human-like face, pointed ears, brown skin, shiny. All the skin was shiny.
wow.
Don't know what it was. I have no idea. Does it fit the description of a lot of things that I've heard about? Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
We had numerous people, because we never saw it flap its wings, that have even written to me because of MonsterQuest. I refused to do an episode on these flying humanoids until that sighting. I would not do it because I said, there's no evidence. There's nothing we can do. I can't tell an hour story from just eyewitnesses.
Right.
But I ended up then I'm motivated to come up with some experiments and some things that we could do. And I found a man and his son had the same exact thing happen to him, literally right down the road. Except the only difference is they pulled over and threw up. We pulled over too because she was worried it was clinging onto the car still. And so we eventually there was a lit exit ramp and about a mile and a half away, and she made me get up to that exit ramp, get out of the car and check the car.
Wow.
I'm going to have to watch that episode again.
Yeah.
Flying humanoids.
Yeah, flying humanoids. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Yeah. We have, it's not that uncommon. People see these. They're less likely. It takes more guts for me to report that than anything. Because everybody goes, oh, you just saw a crane. It was an owl. Yeah, it was a crane if the wings covered the width of the freeway. And it was a crane without feathers. And it was a brown crane.
Yeah, we don't have bats that big in this
And it
country.
was a crane with a human-like head with pointed ears. And good crane. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Doug, there's a ton of stuff we could go into and keep you here and talk for hours
I
and
could
hours.
talk for hours.
We don't want to keep you too long. We really appreciate you coming on and talking with us about the things you have tonight. And
it's fun, guys.
maybe sometime we can get you back on and talk about some more stuff. And whatnot.
Sure. Yeah, never short of any stories.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, we appreciate it again, and you have yourself a good
Man,
night.
this has been.
I'm going to go watch
amazing.
some MonsterQuest, I think.
Sounds good.
I am going to go watch that Untold episode. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to check out Mysterious Encounters if I can find that too.
Yeah, you can find that. And if anybody wants to listen to our podcast, Untold Radio AM.
Yep, definitely.
You can find it on YouTube or any place podcasts are found.
Awesome.
And I'm going to check your show out too, guys.
Appreciate it.
we would
We'll send
appreciate
you a
that.
link. We'll send you a link.
Yeah, I really do.
If if it's good enough, maybe we can join your network.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that. That sounds
great.
actually exciting. Yeah.
All right. Well, you keep your scientific head in the game and
I will.
prove this existence for us, would you?
Yeah, and we look forward to your documentary coming up.
We know you're the man for the job.
Well, I appreciate it.
All right, man. Well, you have a good night. We'll be in
Doug,
touch.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
See ya. You know, I kind of knew that Doug was into like a real scientific side of things with this, but he's got his hands in a lot of stuff, and he knows a lot of A lot of
Yeah, and
technology as far as that goes.
Yeah, and that he was talking about with the fingerprints and everything. That is, I can't wait to see that. That's going to be a good documentary.
Yeah, me too. Anything he does is great. And I'm going to check out that Mysterious Encounters too. I don't know if I've seen that before or not, but I want to see that.
Yeah, I'm going to check that out too. And of course, MonsterQuest.
Yeah, MonsterQuest. If you haven't watched MonsterQuest, you guys got to check MonsterQuest out. A great series about a lot of different cryptids and a lot of different things. Again, guys, thanks for listening. We appreciate it.
Yes, and if you are enjoying the show and enjoying the content that we bring you, please go like and comment on whatever platform it is you're listening on. We'd appreciate it. That would help us out immensely.
Give us a rating. Give us a rating on your platform. Let us know what you think of the show.
Right.
And also coming up soon, we're going to have our website to be released, so we're excited about that.
Coming up pretty quick.
Not too far away, so you guys will be able to go on there and get extra episodes and become members and see a bunch of good content on there. So we can't wait for that.
That's right.
Thank you for being with me again tonight, my friend.
Always fun, man. Always.
Okay, until next time.
Yep.